Yesterday, you might remember, if you were watching, I told a story about a shoplifting scenario that I happened to witness in my local shopping centre, where a guy had come in and had literally tried to run out of a supermarket with a load of stuff, and he was given a good shoeing by the local security guys, which surprised me. But guess what? The policing minister, Chris Philp, has obviously been listening and watching this show. I mean, all of them do. Why wouldn't they? He's got a plan to end shoplifting once and for all. He says that thieves can be as violent as this. The plan is you. He wants you to tackle thieves yourself. Security guards, customers, he wants them to jump right in and make a citizen's arrest. Well, I saw that all happening just a couple of days ago. And as we speak here, you can see lawless Britain in all of its glory. This is a particular incident that happened a few weeks ago of a guy who was thrown out for shoplifting, but then decided to come back and smash the front doors in and start punching away at people. I mean, it's an extraordinary state of affairs. I'm joined now, though, by the former political editor of The Sun, George Pascoe-Watson. George, very good morning to you. And a resplendent jacket, I have to say, you've got there. Very nice to see you. We've got Rishi Sunak coming up later on, so we'll talk about him in a little while and what he's likely to say and what he's going to do for this country and what he's going to do for the Tory party. But we are in a sort of extraordinary situation, aren't we, here, with the way that the high street has kind of been lost to shoplifters. I mean, as I say, I explained this situation I saw the other day, and I was quite surprised to see security guards. Normally, security guards don't do anything. And I was talking to a couple of the local shopkeepers there, and they said just before you saw what happened, this guy was standing there with the stuff in his arms, saying to the shop security people, "There's nothing you can do. I'm going to walk out with this stuff, and you can't stop me." And that's where we are.
Well, that reflects a really dangerous sort of decline and collapse in many standards, people's behavioural standards more than anything else. I mean, the whole point about security guards really has never been to arrest and apprehend people. It's a deterrent.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you look at Sue Braverman, if you look at the government's immigration policy, that's, and you know, the Bibi barge, all these things, Rwanda, are about deterrent.
Right.
What we're now seeing is a new behaviour in this country and around the world, actually, where generations are saying, actually, come arrest me. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Challenging you to your face to actually take the next move. And, of course, lots of people are, I think, perfectly legitimately concerned about what would happen to them if they did try to apprehend somebody. And that's my concern with Chris Philp, the policing minister, talking about citizens' arrests. I mean, who knows what a citizen's arrest looks like? Right. Where is the advice? And have we been told?
Exactly, and what powers do you actually have? I mean, if, for example, because what I witnessed was quite shocking to a lot of people who were watching it. I mean, you and I, who have seen plenty of fights in our time, I dare say, inside and outside of various venues, it's not a shock to see somebody punching somebody, but a lot of people were just standing there kind of staring because this guy was trying to punch his way out of the grappling arms of these security men. They were in turn punching him, kicking him. There was quite a lot of violent activity. I don't know if I was to do that, whether the police would then come and arrest me.
And there's always a risk of that, and people are concerned about that. Listen, I take the view that if all of us turn a blind eye to crime, then I'm afraid we deserve the society we're going to get.
Yes.
It's incumbent on all of us to take responsibility for the world we want to live in.
Yes.
Within reason.
However, you know, having said that, I mean, we had a caller yesterday, a grandmother, who said that her 9-year-old grandson got himself into a bit of an altercation playing football with some 12-year-olds. One of the 12-year-olds pulls a knife out of his rucksack and threatens to stab him. Now, if I'm on the streets of London and I see somebody doing something they shouldn't, how do I know they're not going to pull a machete out and start slicing me up?
Well, this is exactly the problem. You know, if you think about it very carefully, and in the heat of a moment, you might not, but that's how really tragic things happen in today's world. And you know, from a police perspective, you know, the police are desperate to be there to try and do what policing is. But of course, they're imposed on them by the top brass all sorts of rules and regulations which force them to step back from these sorts of situations, and it's very difficult for them too.
Absolutely right. I've got this from Mick in Wallington, who's texted this in. The police minister, Chris Philp, represents a crime and stabbing hotspot, but believes crime is dropping. He needs to get out more, as it's like Dante's Inferno out here. That's from Mick in Wallington. I mean, I also watched Grant Shapps being interviewed by Jeremy Kyle this morning and Nicola Thorpe, who, like all Tory ministers, said crime's going down. And you kind of go, I said to them, I said, is he standing upside down? You know, is he not looking at the figures the right way up? Because crime is not going down to anybody that I know, you know, and it's all very well saying that maybe the reported figures and the data that they've got, that they're looking at, means that actually crime isn't as high as it used to be. But there's no question in my mind, anyway, that people feel less safe, they feel less secure, they feel more unprotected, perhaps, by the police than ever.
And we're in a world where we've got sort of, you know, huge numbers of immigrants coming into the country, and most of them, of course, go through the process correctly. But who knows who's on our streets these days? I said earlier on, attitudes are changing. People are now standing up to the establishment and challenging it directly to its face. We see this in schools. We see school teachers having to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. And it's really hard, because who can stand up and say, enough is enough? And it's very hard for politicians, of course, who have to present to the public the best possible scenario that they can, unless they're in the opposition. And the Labour Party don't want to be accused of talking down the nation the whole time, so they're soft pedaling on it. It's really, really hard. It's only the media, really, where these discussions are taking place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Labour Party are obviously having their conference next week, so they're keeping their powder dry to some extent. But their kind of mantra at the moment is that Britain's broken, the Tories broke it, basically. It's hard to disagree with that. I don't like agreeing with Labour, because I'm not, technically speaking, a Labour supporter. I don't want to see them in government. I'd rather see the Tories actually taking a grip of what's going on, and they've got a year to do it, and making it actually work. But they've got to stop talking in platitudes, and they've got to start actually doing things, haven't they?